There's a place on this planet that most people will never see, never visit, and never truly comprehend. Not because it is far away, not because it is hidden behind some distant mountain range or buried in a remote desert on the other side of the world. It is right here, on this planet, beneath the same ocean whose waves you have probably stood next to at some point in your life. And yet it is so alien, so hostile, so completely unlike anything on the surface of this Earth, that fewer human beings have physically visited it than have walked on the surface of the moon. Let that land for a second. The moon, a rock orbiting our planet 250,000 miles away in the vacuum of space, has had more human visitors than a place right here on Earth, beneath the Pacific Ocean. We are talking about the Mariana Trench, a crescent-shaped scar in the Earth's crust located in the western Pacific Ocean, east of the Mariana Islands, just off the southeastern coast of Japan. And at its very deepest section, a region called Challenger Deep, the ocean floor sits approximately 10,925 meters below sea level, nearly 11 kilometers straight down. To put that distance into something your brain can actually process, if you took Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on the surface of the Earth, and dropped it into the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be submerged under more than a mile of water. The pressure at that depth exceeds 1,000 times the standard atmospheric pressure at sea level. The temperature hovers just above freezing. There is no sunlight. None whatsoever. Not a single photon of light from the sun reaches the bottom of Challenger Deep. For most of human history, the scientific assumption was simple. Nothing lives down there. It was too extreme, too dark, too cold, too crushed by pressure. The deep ocean was considered, for all practical purposes, biologically dead, a barren, featureless wasteland at the bottom of the world. That assumption, it turns out, was one of the most spectacular mistakes in the history of science. Because what scientists have been finding in the Mariana Trench and the surrounding Hadal Zone over the last several years has not just surprised researchers. It has fundamentally rewritten what we thought we knew about life itself, about survival, about the boundaries of biology, and about the possibility of life existing beyond this planet altogether. In 2021, a Chinese scientific team aboard the deep-sea submersible Fendoge launched one of the most ambitious ocean exploration campaigns ever attempted. Over 33 separate dives, reaching depths between 6,000 and 10,900 meters, scientists collected thousands of samples, sediment cores, seawater, and living organisms pulled from the very edge of what biology should theoretically allow. The results of that multi-year project, published in the journal Cell in March 2025 by researchers at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, in collaboration with teams from the University of Copenhagen and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, were extraordinary. They identified over 7,000 distinct microbial species living in the Hadal Zone, which refers to any ocean depth below 6,000 meters. And nearly 90% of those species had never been documented anywhere before. Not in any ocean, not in any laboratory database, not anywhere on Earth. They were entirely new to science. Think about what that actually means. In one trench, in one region of the Western Pacific, scientists discovered approximately 6,300 species of microorganism that humanity had never seen before. And these were not passive, barely surviving organisms just clinging to existence by the thinnest biological thread. They were thriving, actively competing with each other, evolving, filling ecological roles in a complete functioning ecosystem built entirely without sunlight, without warmth, and under pressures that would destroy the body of any surface-dwelling creature in an instant. But the discovery that truly stopped the scientific community cold was not the sheer number of species. It was the way these microbes had evolved. In most ecosystems on Earth, evolution proceeds through a combination of random genetic mutation and natural selection. Chance plays an enormous role. A random mutation happens, and if it is beneficial, it spreads. If it is not, it disappears. That is the standard model. In the Hadal Zone, that model essentially breaks down. The research team found that random chance was almost irrelevant to how these organisms evolved. Instead, the extreme conditions themselves, the crushing pressure, the near-freezing temperatures, the absolute absence of light, acted as an extraordinarily powerful biological filter. Only organisms with very specific genetic advantages survived at all. The result was an ecosystem shaped almost entirely by extreme selection pressure, producing microbes with genetic structures so precisely optimized for their environment that researchers believe these organisms could hold the key to developing entirely new medicines, new industrial enzymes, and potentially even new technologies for long-duration human spaceflight. And it was not just microbes. The same expedition documented creatures that have no real equivalent anywhere else on the planet. The Hadal amphipod, known scientifically as Hirundellea gigas, is a small shrimp-like crustacean roughly the length of your thumb. Scientists collected 662 of them. What the genomic analysis revealed was remarkable. These creatures can migrate freely across a vertical range of 4,000 meters in the water column. Their genome is so precisely adapted to extreme pressure that it functions optimally in conditions that would literally destroy the proteins of almost any other animal on Earth. And the relationship between these amphipods and the microbial communities living inside their digestive systems appears to be a finely tuned biological partnership, almost like an internal life support system evolved specifically to sustain life in an environment where no life should logically exist. Then there's the fish, not a metaphor, not a figure of speech, actual fish, living, swimming, breathing fish in the deepest, darkest, most pressure-compressed environment on the surface of this planet. The Hadal snailfish, a member of the Lipardidae family, holds the current world record as the deepest living fish species ever recorded. It is translucent, almost ghost-like, with delicate fins, no scales, and a soft body that looks completely unsuited for survival at those depths. Its skin is so thin you can see through it. In April 2023, scientists from the Minderoo UWEA Deep Sea Research Centre at the University of Western Australia, led by marine biologist Professor Alan Jameson, filmed a juvenile snailfish at a depth of 8,336 meters in the Izu Ogasawara Trench, south of Japan, setting a new confirmed world record for the deepest fish ever filmed. A few days later, the same team collected 2 Pseudoliparis belyaevi snailfish in traps at 8,022 meters deep in the Japan Trench, making them the first fish ever physically retrieved from beyond 8 kilometers below the surface. How does a fish survive at that depth? The answer lies in a molecule called trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO. At extreme pressure, proteins inside living cells begin to distort and lose their structural shape. When a protein loses its shape, it loses its function. That is a death sentence for any organism. TMAO acts as a chemical stabilizer, protecting protein structures from pressure-induced damage. Deep-sea fish accumulate enormous concentrations of it, far beyond anything found in shallower species. And scientists have confirmed that the deeper the fish lives, the higher its TMAO concentration. In snailfish found at the deepest recorded depths, TMAO concentrations are so extreme that their tissues carry a distinctly sharp, briny smell. This is not incidental. It is evolution's direct chemical response to an environment that should make complex animal life impossible. The fish itself is a living proof that biology finds a way when given enough time and enough pressure. Now go further, below the fish, below the amphipods, below the microbes floating in the water column, down into the seafloor itself, not on it, inside it. In findings published in July 2025 in the journal Nature, a China-led research team using the Fendouje submersible documented thousands of tube worms and bivalve mollusks living at depths of up to 9,533 meters inside the Mariana Trench, making this the deepest colony of animals ever observed anywhere on Earth. These organisms were not surviving on organic material drifting down from above. They were thriving on chemical energy, seeping up from below, from methane and other compounds venting through cracks in the seafloor itself. The previous scientific consensus had held that chemosynthesis-based animal communities of this complexity simply could not exist at Hadal depths. That consensus was wrong. This brings us to the hydrothermal vents, and they deserve careful attention because they represent something almost incomprehensible. Scattered across the volcanic seafloor of the Western Pacific are cracks in the Earth's crust where superheated water, saturated with dissolved minerals and chemicals, jets upward from beneath the planet's surface. The water temperature at some vent openings can exceed 400 degrees Celsius. That water does not boil only because the pressure at those depths is so immense that it keeps the water in a liquid state, despite temperatures that would vaporize it at the surface. And around these vents, powered by a process called chemosynthesis, entire ecosystems flourish. Bacteria at the base of the food chain convert hydrogen sulfide and methane into energy. Tube worms, shrimp, mussels, sea cucumbers, and countless other species feed on those bacteria. Complete food webs, complete ecosystems, all in total permanent darkness, all powered not by sunlight but by the chemistry of the Earth's own interior. In 2024, geochemist Mengran Du and her research team documented what is now considered the deepest known chemosynthetic ecosystem on Earth, stretching approximately 2,500 kilometers through Hadal trenches between Russia and Alaska. The methane concentrations in the sediments were dramatically higher than anything previously recorded in deep sea environments. Her team's analysis concluded that microbes in those sediments were performing a metabolic process that scientists had not previously confirmed possible in situ at those depths, converting organic material into carbon dioxide, then converting that carbon dioxide into methane. A buried biochemical loop, entirely self-sustaining, entirely hidden, running in the dark at the bottom of the ocean. Now here is where the story takes a turn that is difficult to sit with. When research teams analyzed sediment samples from Challenger Deep, the very deepest point on Earth, they found persistent organic pollutants. industrial chemical compounds, traces of human industry. In the most remote, most inaccessible, most isolated place on this planet, a place that fewer than a dozen humans have ever physically visited, there was already contamination. An earlier study had already named a newly discovered amphipod species, Eurythanes plasticus, because microplastic fibers were found embedded in its gut tissue at Hadal depths. The bottom of the Mariana Trench named for plastic, because that is what was found inside it. There is something genuinely clarifying about that fact, because what science has uncovered in the deepest part of the Pacific is not just a catalog of extraordinary organisms, it is a mirror held up to something much larger. It is evidence that life on this planet is far more tenacious, far more inventive, and far more widespread than we ever imagined. Life does not need sunlight. It does not need warmth. It does not need pressure levels compatible with human survival. It needs chemistry, time, and opportunity. And given those three things, it builds ecosystems in the most impossible places on Earth. Which brings us to the question that planetary scientists and astrobiologists are now taking very seriously. If chemosynthetic life can flourish in complete darkness, under crushing pressure, powered entirely by geology, right here in the Pacific Ocean, what does that mean for the possibility of life elsewhere in our solar system? Jupiter's moon. Europa is believed to harbor a liquid ocean beneath its icy crust, cut off entirely from sunlight, potentially warmed by tidal forces generated by Jupiter's gravity. Saturn's moon. Enceladus actively vents water vapor from a subsurface ocean and has already shown chemical signatures consistent with hydrothermal activity. The deep Pacific Ocean is not merely a scientific curiosity. It is potentially a proof of concept for life in the universe. More than 99.9% of the global seafloor has never been visually observed by humans. Not photographed, not mapped, not seen. And yet, in the tiny fraction that scientists have managed to explore, in that sliver of the Hadal zone that the Fendosia and its research teams have descended into, they have found thousands of species unknown to science, ecosystems running on the chemistry of Earth's core, fish swimming where no fish should swim, and microbes whose genetic structures could reshape medicine, industry, and our understanding of life for generations to come. The deadliest part of the Pacific is not hostile because it chooses to be. It is extreme because the physics of this planet made it that way. 11 kilometers of water above it, tectonic plates grinding against each other beneath it, pressures that crush, temperatures that freeze, darkness that is absolute. And yet, at every level, in every sample, from the water column to the sediment to the rock itself, what scientists keep finding is the same thing. Life. Extraordinary, impossible, relentless, creative life. Doing what life on this planet has always done. Finding a way forward, no matter what the conditions are. Science is only beginning to tell that story. And if these first discoveries are anything to go by, the rest of it is going to change everything we think we know.